today's Lunch and Learn. It's the final of our session. My name is Gail Gray, and I work for the Department of Neighborhoods. And the Department of Neighborhoods and the Community Relations Commission are the ones responsible for the Lunch and Learn. So we welcome you. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge the commissioners that are here. And one of them is Jabril, and he'll be telling you a lot more about himself. The other one back there is Commissioner Poirier, and she's normally the one up here. I just got stuck today. And of course, Hound Dogs Pizza, we love them, we love them. They have sponsored this entire series, and I hope that you've all been able to enjoy their goods because they are great. And I welcome also the TV audience, and I hope that you find today's show informative and also educational for you. So let's get started. And the easiest way to do it without mispronouncing names, get this, okay, is you let other people introduce themselves. And then it saves a whole lot of that kind of thing. So please introduce yourself, who you represent, and your title, please. And why don't we go ahead and start with you, sir.
Good afternoon, or good morning, still morning. My name is Jibril Mohammed. I lead a nonprofit group, Somali Kin, that works to help incorporate our newest Americans, the Somali community. As many of you would know, I mean, you meet Somalis everywhere. They work with you, they shop with you, they live near you. Columbus is home to a very large Somali community, so large that, you know, Somali is the #1 language spoken at home other than English. And there are 98 languages spoken in Columbus. Now, to put that into context, Somalia is a country in the eastern horn of Africa, and it's a very tiny country of 15 million people. And Chinese is spoken by over 1 billion people. And Somali still beats Chinese and Spanish, which is spoken by a whole race and all of these other languages. So that tells you how many Somalis will be here. I hope we will learn about the Somalis today, and thank you for all coming.
And I hope we all get to learn how to know more Somali folks and get them involved in our lives. Is that correct?
That's true. Thank you.
Good. All right, Nana, please share about yourself.
Okay, I bring you greetings from the oldest and the boldest civil rights organization in America. I'm Nana Watson-Jones, and I am the president of your NAACP.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, friends. My name is Tarunjit Singh Battaglia. I am a human. I am a man. I am a person of faith. I am a Sikh. I am an American. I am an immigrant. And I have been a resident of Columbus for almost 30 years. And when I came here, there was no gray, it was all black, so I know how I got that. I'm a trustee of the Parliament of the World's Religions, and locally I work with the Interfaith Association of Central Ohio. And I'm just wondering where you all came from. Thank you. Amazing.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ernest Oponi. And I represent WCRM 102.1, also known as Sky FM 102.1 here in Columbus, Ohio. We are Columbus Multicultural Community Radio Station. This is a locally owned community radio station here. We have over 40 volunteers who produces local programs in different languages and also in the English language. I am also the director for, as part of my role, I'm also the director for the Center of Multicultural Innovation and Engagement, where as part of our programming, we are involved in speaking engagements in education, educating people on how to better relate with people of different race, culture, and also of different color. I'm very happy to be here. And I hope we will learn a lot from each other before we leave here today.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Anaí Ortiz, and I am your Franklin County coroner. My office happens to, unfortunately, work with a variety of nationalities and cultures, and we've worked with embassies and local groups on burials and talking to families. We are well-versed in the different cultures here in Franklin County. I also happen to be Latina. My mom was from South America, my father from Puerto Rico, and I grew up in the South Bronx. So I grew up in a pretty Latino area, actually, with a lot of cultures. And I work with and volunteer with several Latino groups here in the community.
Thank you so much. I'm embarrassed about this, but the first flyer that went out, we didn't have anybody representing the Latino population. And this beautiful woman down there, she emailed me and said that that was ridiculous that we didn't. So I said, how about you being on the panel? I didn't mean to do that. So that's how we have her, and I'm very, very excited about that. So the next question on the list, what population do you work with, and what type of services do you provide? And why don't we start with you, Doctor, down at the end? Thank you.
So let's do this in two parts. First part, I, as the coroner, we obviously investigate certain types of deaths here in the county, and as I mentioned before, unfortunately, some of the people affected are from a variety of nationalities, Nepali, Hindu, Orthodox Jewish, Latino, and the Latino could be Central America, South America, from Spain, African nations, and we have to be kind of versed, and I'll discuss that later, on the different cultures and nationalities that are here in order to work with the families and the embassies on their death rights, because each culture has a different right for death. So that's part one, and the other part, I work with some Latino organizations here in Franklin County, youth. We're having a couple of big tables coming up on Latino issues, and so I'm quite involved in that. There's a couple of representatives here from some of those organizations, so.
I can see them. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ernest.
Okay.
What would you like to share?
Sorry. So what population do we serve? We serve mostly the African immigrant community here in the Central Ohio area, which is over 200,000 plus people. Well, depend on where you're getting the statistics from, but mostly over 200 plus thousand people here in the Central Ohio area. The kind of services we provide is providing, we play music. We are the main media platform for these communities. We play African music. We play the Caribbean. We play reggae music. We play high life, hip life. We play some cultural or folklore music, which is not heard on mainstream media. We give out PSAs, which are mostly translations from regular English to maybe Somali or the Ghanaian language, which is Chi or Akan. There are cases where we have to help in PSAs for even some of the local associations when they are having their festivals. We'll help them in promoting those events. So in the future, if you're looking for a place to reach out to these communities, we highly recommend them for you. We also provide speakers for if you're doing anything and you think you want some rich African or immigrant speaker that can present their own narrative, not what you read on book or you see on CNN. Or we have those people that knows the culture, that have lived the culture and are still living those cultures that we can present to you. And also we do look out for emerging cultures. Central Ohio, we are at our highest time ever as far as diversity in culture. diversity in art, the way people act and the way people live, the traditions that people have. And I believe it's not going to stop there. I think we are going to continue to grow, to see difference of different people of different color, people that wear clothes that we don't wear, people that speak in ways that we have not, but probably languages that we've never heard before. And we are always out there looking out for these cultures and see how best we can incorporate them in what we do and how best we can send out your information to these communities. So in a nutshell, that is what we do.
Thank you. That's a lot. My goodness.
We try.
Very nice. Dr. Battaglia?
We all try. I have a brochure for the association that's back there on the end desk there. The member faiths of the association are Baha'i, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Islamic, Jain, Jewish, Sikh, and Unitarian Universalist. We have official representatives from these religious traditions on the board of the association. And however, we serve not only these communities, but we serve people of faith in general, some of which may have one religious identity, may have multiple identities, or others that we would call spiritual but not religious. And then there are other people of conscience who may not be people of faith that work with us together in building mutual respect and understanding within our own community. In terms of services we provide, we do a lot of educational resources, and I got some of them here today. This is a book, Religion in Ohio, that the association put together in the state's bicentennial. It's available at the back. A complimentary copy of this is available at every public and private middle and high school and public library in Ohio, and has a chapter on 40 Christian denominations and 8 other faiths in Ohio particular. The one that recently came out is the Abrahamic Encounter, and this book is written by a Christian, Jew, and a Muslim together, and documents the history of these relationships in Central Ohio. And so this is also available at the back. And for those of us who don't have time to read books, we have a small little booklet too, little introduction there. Along with educational resources, we also offer a speakers bureau, just like Ernest, you mentioned, of different religious traditions. He may come to us and say, well, I want a Muslim woman who is Somali. So some of the requests get or I want a Buddhist who is a convert. So we offer a lot of those opportunities, and the email address of the association is at the back of this. And the other one is public advocacy. Some of you may remember recently there was a group in town on Eid, the holy day of the Muslim community, was going to come and protest outside a mosque. And we have built a community in which we can come and stand with the community that is under such pressure, which I think matters a lot to that community. And so those are the kind of interventions that we're also able to do. And the one other thing I want to mention is the work that we do has become even more important today. Looking at the rhetoric that's coming from elected leaders, I've just had it. Absolutely had it. That I thought at one point there were certain things in the community were not acceptable to be talked in the public domain. And in some ways, and maybe you can reflect on this, I thought Dr. King helped us get beyond those. But I see some of what is being currently undone is not just the legacy of the previous president, but in some ways also Dr. King. And that saddens me. But at the same time, gives more purpose to what we all do collectively. That's a perfect segue into Nana's.
Thank you so very much.
So we go boom, boom, boom.
I thank you for that, for handing the baton to me. Your NAACP works with the entire community. We're an advocacy group. We agitate and we communicate for social justice in our community in the areas of housing, education, economic sustainability, criminal justice, and the list goes on. But we are your advocacy organization. Services, we're just here to assist you if you've been discriminated against, you have complaints, you need questions answered about what we do and what's going on in our community. We are a partner with the City of Columbus, and I think this is the first time that I can recall that we now are a stakeholder. We work with your department. We share information with the entire city. sometimes we're not all on the same page, so we agree to disagree about issues that affect our community. We don't go public. We usually like to have those conversations behind closed doors to see how we can all work together in a positive way for the common good of our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The question is the population. I said a little bit about the population. We don't only work with the Somali community, but we also work with the larger New American community. We do lots of educational programming activities, including an annual scholarship offered to high school graduates who are Somali. We have advocacy programs. We have relationships with city and city agencies and foundations. For example, we have a program where we train young women to become community health workers and work in their neighborhoods, in their zip codes, to reduce infant mortality. And so far, we have trained 7 young women of all races: an African American, a Somali, a Nepali, so we do all of those different activities. We also do lots of advocacy when we see something that is not the way it should be in terms of inclusion and diversity. We push for changes. Last year we had a Somali Civic Participation Forum at the Ohio State House, where we invited lots of different stakeholders, elected officials from state, city, and the federal government. And I see some of the people who came. Thank you for coming to that. So we push for changes that incorporate all of us for a better community for all of us.
They're doing some great stuff, aren't they? Amazing. Okay, we always hear about multiculturalism and acceptance and diversity and inclusion, and I think sometimes those buzzwords are getting used a little bit too much. So I guess I'm going to ask you, how do you understand the term multicultural, or what does it mean to you, multicultural inclusion and acceptance? Does that mean that everybody fits into one pot, or what does that mean to you? So please share that. And why don't we start with you, Dr. Battaglia, and try another turnaround there.
I think there are several terms that could be used. The one that I think for a long time in our country has been used has been the melting pot model for multiculturalism. And as you heard Gail mentioned, in multiculturalism, if you're looking at melting pot, there's only one flavor. Unity becomes a central focus then in the melting pot. But very much like the salad that we had today, there is the other called pluralism model, in which, or the multipluralism model, in which unity is not the purpose. Each of us maintain our very distinct identities, which could be ethnic, cultural, religious, a whole range of them. Yet at the same time, we work to build relationships with each other and build community. And what I would posit to say, that to build community, we don't all need to be the same. If we all had to be the same, God would have created each one of you with a gray beard like me, with this colored turban, and all flowers in the world would be red. Diversity, I think, makes us stronger as a community together.
Thank you so much. Nana, would you like to go again?
Sure. I think that multicultural inclusion is embracing differences, understanding differences, and just valuing what everybody brings to the table, regardless of what they may look like, regardless of their language. We need to understand for the common good of our community.
Thank you. Jabril?
Yeah, so I'll give an example of, a prime example of diversity. I know many of you are following the news. A Muslim Somali woman was elected in the primary in Minnesota to run for Congress in November, in a district that's Democratic. She was a state representative prior to that. There are state representatives, others actually, who also won. There are city council members, there are school board members who are Somali in Minnesota. In Columbus, how many do you think we have?
Zero.
None. That's inclusion, that's embracing diversity. I mean, Columbus does not look the same way that it used to look 10, 20, 30 years ago. It looks different. and its composition of city government, state government, public sector, private sector, needs to look like the population that live in Columbus. It needs to reflect the diversity. I think that is the prime example of what diversity looks like. This is diversity. There's everybody here. And wherever you go in Columbus, it looks to look like this. Thanks.
Thank you. I like that. I'm sorry, Doctor, would you like to share?
Sure. So I see multicultural inclusion. I pretty much echo what our previous speakers have said. Basically, I see it as acknowledging that there are different cultures within our community, different cultures with their own contributions in terms of values, in terms of food, in terms of language, respecting those cultures, and supporting the needs of those cultures in our community. I grew up in New York City, where it's a lot more of a melting pot, if you will, than here, and I can say that it was a lot easier there than it has been for me here, and I've been here since 1996, and I still don't feel much of that inclusion here, unfortunately. In New York, sure, you're going to have those little areas, and I can name them, like in Brooklyn, where it's a little bit anti-multiculturalism. But for the most part, you don't feel as different. And so for me, that means having folks not feel different, accepting them, and making them feel welcome.
I like that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Very, very nice. Ernest?
Okay, so thank you very much for my fellow panelists, and I'll also echo a little bit from what they have said. Multiculturalism or multicultural inclusion means accepting people for their differences. And usually when the word multicultural or people of different culture is thrown around, some people look at it as if these people have disabilities or they have weaknesses, and we are there to support them. But there are also some strength in these diverse people. What makes them stronger than what we have? What does the Somali community bring, which makes them stronger than anything else we have seen? What has the Nepali community or the other African or Ghanaian community has that we can all join together and celebrate, and make us stronger as a people? That is how I see it. I think there is a lot of strength in each of these communities, and we should go out and look at how can we explore these strengths that they have that will make us all as a people stronger together. And so that we can live in unity and be stronger than what we are before.
And again, I recommend after that you stay for our conversations and enjoy this beautiful tea. Up until today, my ignorance taught me that it's Somali tea. And I would have told everybody that, and it's much more than that, and it's awesome. So please join with us. Okay, how do you in your life practice inclusion and acceptance, both professionally and personally? I know that we talk about it a lot, but what are you doing? Why don't we start out with you, Ernest?
Okay, good. So I believe you cannot spell multiculturalism without Sky 102.1. Or WCRM. It's our life. It's what we do. It's what we do. Every day we are faced with a challenge on how do we meet this community? How do we make them understand what the city of Columbus is saying? What do we translate this PSA so that they can really, it speaks to, it reaches them at the place which they are. It's what we do every day. And we are always faced with that challenge, and we love it. We love it. We go out there, look for the right people to put it in the right way, and in the right accent so that they can really, cause which one of us have a way in which we respond to things when it's presented to us. And we look for that thing that make each community tick. What turn this community on? What will really bring them out? What will really make them see that they are really part of us? And that is what we do. So we show this in our everyday relationship with our coworkers, with our co-presenters. When you come to our studios, you see an African with a Nepalese sitting side by side. We have programs like Culture Connection, where you have a Hispanic guy, an African guy, a Nepali guy. What they think about this issue? How does it, how does this issue really affect, each community? And we see the differences, but we also see the commonality. What how will this bill affect all these immigrant community here? That is what we also look out for. So multiculturalism is WCRM 102.1.
Well, that's wonderful. So on October 20th at the Neighborhood Best Practices Conference, you all better sign up quickly because it's going to be loaded. Dr. Ortiz, would you please, would you like me to repeat the question or?
No, I got it right here.
All right, I'm sorry.
So again, a two-parter for me. Professionally, I run an agency. So when I first walked into that agency, one of the first things I noticed was there was nothing translated. And we're working with people in grief, working with people who have suffered some trauma. The last thing they need is to not be able to understand what is going on and, what are these forms that you're making me sign for? So so I had some of those forms translated, and it was funny because then the funeral homes heard about it, and some of them actually came to me to ask, and I have I don't do professional translation, but their forms were very small, and they asked me to just, translate a few sentences for them. So that was one of the things I have done was language is an issue sometimes, and trying to make them comfortable, folks comfortable who English is not their first language. And so translation of forms. The other is understanding, for me, understanding cultures is extremely important, and I brought in speakers. So, and it was mandatory for staff participation. And so I brought in a Hindu speaker, and I brought in a Muslim. I brought in a rabbi to talk about both Orthodox Jewish and regular Jewish practices and the religion and their deaf rights. So we've done a lot of that. We've brought in also folks from other areas to talk about, developmental disabilities. I mean, those are other, you can classify those also as other, cultures or practices. And so I've done some of that. And then now Hispanic Heritage Month is coming up, and we will be exhibiting artwork for by Latino artists or any artist who depicts Latino culture. And I plan on doing not just that for Hispanic Heritage Month, but later on for Black History Month and Women's History, I'd like to do exhibits so that folks can come in and really relate to the different cultures, and especially my staff. So that's professionally. And personally, how do I practice? I practice by, I like going to different restaurants and trying different cultural foods. And when I'm there, I talk to the folks there, asking them questions about, and everyone enjoys it, and we all learn from each other. The other is I happen to really love to travel, and when I go to the different cultures, I make a point to go to neighborhood restaurants, neighborhood stores, where I can speak to local folks and understand their culture. I just went to Ethiopia and went to a restaurant, they speak no English, and they don't use like the alphabet like we do, right? So we couldn't understand the menu, but it had pictures, right? So we pointed at the pictures, and then she was asking me a question, and I said, drink. So I used sign language, and it was really interesting because then my husband and I and the woman ended up having this kind of sign language conversation, and she taught us words in her language, and she asked us for words in English. And then she taught us how to eat the food because it's a different way of eating. And it was just an enjoyable experience, and we learned a lot more from the culture that way. So I like to kind of integrate and just sit as one and learn.
Beautiful. Yeah, sharing a meal is a really big deal. Okay, Nana, would you share?
Yeah, I'll share first personally. I'm a very inquisitive person, so I'm going to ask if I'm going to ask somebody. I'm going to ask my brother. Tell me about the Somalian community. What's the language? Tell me about the attire. What does that mean? I'm going to ask you. Tell me about this turban. I'm going to ask you about the radio station in Ghana. And certainly I'm going to ask you about your culture and what you do. I think that you have to begin to understand and meet people where they are. I think that's key because we're more alike than we are different. Professionally, I used to work for a major corporation many years ago, and I think that's how I met Gail. And when I was there, I was the only black in management, and that was very disturbing to me. And most people know that I'm very transparent. Sometimes I don't have a filter, so it might just roll out and it might be offensive, but it's not meant to be. And I went to the president and I said, I don't have anybody that looks like me to play with. And I need for you to take a look at our culture at this company. As a result of that, they developed a diversity and inclusion committee that began to address the issues and concerns of the population that worked there. And it's my understanding that it's still ongoing. But 20 or 30 years ago, that was not heard of. So that corporation is doing best practices, in my opinion. And I encourage other corporations to do the same. I know the city does an excellent job of it, but we all need to take time to understand. And if I can't understand my brother here, I'll say, well, could you repeat that and tell me what you're saying? And he's not offended at that because he knows that I want to know. And I will do the same with all of you because I'm not afraid. I need to understand your culture and how you can help me understand it so I can share it. So that's all, Gail.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Nana. Let me pick up from there. In addition to my role at Somali Kin and serving as a commissioner with the Community Relations Commission, which looks into issues of discrimination, I teach Somali language and culture at the High State University. So I take the language and culture to people who do not speak the language and culture. I also advise the Somali Students Association, encourage them to participate in, multicultural activities such as the Taste of OSU, all of these other events and activities. And one other way that personally I practice diversity and I make sure that I am involved is that I am a member of various boards and commissions, and I am a member of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, for example, which advocates for U.S. leadership in global affairs. And we visit Capitol Hill once a year. We meet people. We go with people from across the country talking about the same issues. More U.S. Development assistance for developing countries, more U.S. diplomatic presence in the rest of the world, more U.S. funding for international affairs by Congress, which the funding level that the U.S. commits to the international affairs budget is about 1%. And we advocate for more of that. So by getting involved in boards, commissions of diverse organizations and causes, I always stay active and aware of what's going around me.
Thank you. That's amazing. You all do amazing things now, don't you? I knew that whenever you were coming up here anyhow.
Thank you.
Okay, how can we break existing barriers and promote inclusiveness? Because even though we talk about being inclusive, I would say that most of us aren't, especially if you look at your ring of friends around you and you look at how diverse they might be or may not be. So please tell me, how can we stop what we're doing now and how can we carry on in a new, fresh direction? I'm gonna let you go first, Jabril.
Sure. So I came to the U.S. in 2005. I'm here for just over 10 years. And, you know, I have not seen or lived through some of the experiences that my, for example, African-American community members went through or their ancestors went through. Now, this is a country that is the home of opportunity, but also has had a history of segregation and people, you know, discriminating against each other and staying away from each other and living in different parts of the city and going to different schools and all of these. I think that's still typical of Columbus. There is still, you know, areas where you do not find diversity. There are schools where you do not find diversity. I can tell you a story. I live in a suburb of Columbus. And my child, when we moved there a couple of years ago, my third grader, I received a call from the principal and she says she wants to do an assessment of his English language skills. And I say, okay, and they do it, and he's okay. He has no, and it was done when he was in kindergarten, and he's just fine. He was born here, he has no accent, he reads at 6th grade level. When he's in 3rd grade, he's above and beyond. But still she insists that she wants to put him in ASL. And I say, why? She says, because you speak a language other than English at home. And I say, no, you're not going to do that. And she says, we're going to do it. And I insist, no.
She's called us.
The report card comes. I wish I had a PowerPoint. I would have put the scorecard up there. So there is this graph that shows where the scores of the city, the school district are, the state. The kid is above the school, he's above the state average, he's above the school district average, he's above the school average, he's beyond, he's up there. And I take the report to her and I say, look, you wanted to put this kid in ASL. Did you want to put him back, to pull him back? I mean, when you take him out from English language arts class and put him in a special English ESL class, are you doing him any service? Are you doing him any favor? I mean, so there are areas where it's still difficult to be different. And I think we need to change that culture. I mean, to be involved, to change our ways, we need to go out and go to different libraries than the ones that we go to. We need to shop at different stores than the ones that we're used to. We need to explore. We need to eat out at different restaurants. We need to learn people's languages. Megan up there just said, Shah, tea, and we had a conversation. She knew the word for tea in Somali, and we had a conversation about where she works, and now we'll be reaching out to each other. See that? So get out there, learn people's languages. We're not going away, we're here to stay. And Somali is a Columbus language. So we better, we can decide to practice the same old, historic segregation of trying to push this community out, but the outcome will be the same, and a crime-ridden in a city and things like that. But it's not that, and that's not going to do anybody anything. So we better accept our realities, and we better embrace each other, and we better embrace the changing environment that we live in.
Thank you so much. And I think everyone smiles in the same language. I don't know. I haven't been to every country or anything, but I think a smile is a smile. A warm, friendly, hey, you're here and I'm here. It makes a big difference to somebody. Dr. Ortiz, I'm sorry. You want to share what you've got?
Sure. In terms of breaking existing barriers, I guess, again, two-parter, right? there's the operational, there's the big organizations, what can they do? And then on a personal level, right? So big organizations, government agencies, as someone here had mentioned earlier, having offices of inclusion that can bring different speakers and educational opportunities for the staff to learn about the different cultures. The other thing would be very, very important is language. Again, English may not be the first language for a lot of, well, it isn't the first language for most of these people. They may know English when they come here or they learn it. However, it's a lot easier to understand things in their own language. So translating forms, translating websites, or having, you know, that little button that says here, translate here. It's easy enough to do, and I did that with our own. You just have a little thing, and it translates into different languages. Educational opportunities for the staff. And then personally, on a personal level, to become more diverse, you know, when I first came here, and they don't have it anymore, and I don't know what happened to it, but I brought my kids to the International Festival. And that international festival was really a blessing for a lot of the school kids and a lot of families, because that's where you learned about some of these cultures. And they had dances, and they had performances from the different cultures, and they had food from the different cultures. And it was at the Veterans Memorial for many years, and then, you know, no more Veterans Memorial, it's a new, and, but it was stopped, and that's where I would bring my children to kind of learn other cultures, and then we would eat from the different vendors, you know. I would ask them to try something new each time we went, you know, to learn, and then we'd go back and pull out. Computers weren't, you know, we did have computers, but they weren't as fast back then. And so we would pull out encyclopedias or atlases and then talk about the different cultures. So things like festivals, going to different festivals, or putting on the different festivals and eating the different foods, and learning another language also goes a long way, even if it's just a few words. And that's what I do when I go to any new country or meet new people. I try and learn different words from that, at least hello, right? Hello and goodbye.
Those are some very strong
Yeah.
tips, and thank you. I also wanted to mention Dr. Jindal over here is the man behind the International Festival. So, and he's right here in the audience. He's actually one of our Community Relations Commissioners as well. So if you've never met Dr. Jindal, take time to meet him. Okay, I'm sorry, Ernest.
When you give the opportunity, the festival is on 29th and 30th of September in Franklin County, Franklin Park.
What is? I'm sorry.
Yes.
And if I know Dr. Jindal, he's got a stack of those things. So he will help you during our discussion.
Yes.
Okay, Ernest?
Thank you very much. Dr. Jindal, thank you very much. And we have been a great support for that festival over the years. And I'll see you again and see how best we can put you out there. I think you are doing a great job, and we should give you all the support that is needed. I believe inclusion and acceptance is something that we should all commit to. It should not just be a department that we create in our corporations or our businesses just to make us look good, to make us look politically correct, but it should be a commitment, and it should be an ongoing commitment. It should be an intentional thing that we set up in our businesses, and also we should make sure that we commit to it. I believe Central Ohio, as I said, is not going to get any diverse than it is. It's not going to get less diverse than it is. We are continuously looking or seeing people of different diverse race and cultures coming in. In my community, I come from Ghana, and I've been here over 15 years in the United States. And over the years, I have seen, even just in the Ghanaian community, I've seen a gradual diverse associations or groups even coming out of that community. I can count as at least 10 of them. And all these 10 associations or groups have their own festivals they are celebrating. And being in the media for my seat, they come to us all the time, hey, Ernest, can you put this word out there for us about our celebration? So Columbus is going to get more diverse. I think the best way for us to embrace this is not to shield ourselves or our children away from these communities, but find a way to gradually introduce them to these things. A place like the International Festival is a great place to experience people of different culture. We should be intentional in our school systems to accept kids of different culture, find ways to make other kids feel comfortable around these people. Let them understand what makes them stronger, not their weaknesses, what makes them stronger, and what will make them and us stronger than what we are now. And I believe those things are very, very important. Let us focus more on that, and don't let us look at how bad they will make us all look. I believe there is beauty in our strength. I believe we can celebrate our strength together, and I believe we can all grow up to be a great people. Another thing I would like to say is to give these communities the opportunity to grow. The best way to also embrace people is to give people the room to grow. Give them the room to also incorporate some of the American cultures or some of the American things. We are all in a learning process. We are not all perfect. We are still learning. There is not one community that is it or has been, is it, and it's the epitome of civilization, or if I should put it. But we should all strive to grow, accept each other's differences, accept each other, give people room to grow and also catch up. Being here on my first year, about 15 years ago in the United States, I came in towards the Super Bowl time, and my coworkers had told me it was a weekend, a Super Bowl weekend, and they were inviting me to come. Ernest, come, let's go watch football. And I thought football was what I knew back home. It was fun. The only difference was the ball was not kicked. The ball was mostly held and thrown around, and people chase each other, they hate each other. I'm like, man, these guys are crazy. I played soccer in my high school. I was in my high school team, and I enjoyed playing soccer, but that was not the way I played soccer. So it was a learning process for me. I had a friend, but I'm like, what does it mean? Why did the guy, why did they hit him? That is uncalled for. And after that game, I took this friend of mine to a soccer game. We all went to the park, and we kicked the ball around. And he also enjoyed my soccer thing, and it was a learning process for him. We found the common ground. We learned each other's game. We found a way to embrace each other's. And once in a while, we go to a soccer game. Sometimes we watch a football game together. So there is beauty in our differences. We should look for the strength in each other. And let's celebrate that.
Thank you. And you took the time to learn about somebody else's,
yes,
what they enjoy.
Yes.
And then they learned from you. Boy, they're good, aren't they, up here? Wow. Okay, we're going to do a little switch now. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Friends, when I came to Columbus 30 years ago, we were not a very diverse community. And I think what has changed now is that we have diversity, a lot more diversity in Columbus, but within each community is a lot more diverse. And the lens I look through is the religious lens. Look at the Muslim community. You have the African-American Muslims, you have the Somali Muslims, you have the Middle Eastern Muslims who worship separately from the Somalis, and the Indo-Pakistani worship separately. So we've got diversity within religious communities, but yet, friends, at the same time, and I heard Nana shake her head, we have to admit that violence and Christian extremism and the misuse of Christian faith has been a founding part of who we are as a nation. Many of our immigrants who came to this country brought their faith with them and used it as a tool of oppression of the native people and those African Americans who were brought here as slaves. And somehow we keep quiet about that. It's a conversation that's not a polite conversation to have. But I think some point we as a country and a community will be ready for the conversation about slavery and the oppression and the wiping out of the native populations who were here. And racism. And that continues today. And the issue is browning of America. Friends, it's very simple. When I came here in Columbus, compared to today, we are a lot more brown as a country. And when I became a citizen, at the oath ceremony, there were almost, I would say, 95% of people who were brown or black. I think that scares some of our countrymen, and we need to work on it together.
Thank you. That's a very good point. We do need to work on it together. So I'm going to skip a question here because you guys have so much to say. But can you provide us with some tools maybe on how to practice inclusiveness and acceptance? What kind of things can we do when we meet new people or when we're in a new situation so that we can make the other party feel comfortable and that we can learn and become friends and get to know one another? Would you like to start, Ernest?
Okay, I think being from the media, I think sight and sound. Sight and sound is a great way to make people feel comfortable and let them feel they are welcome. If I walk down this hallway and I see colors that represent my country, colors that represent where I'm from, I hear music, I hear symbols that represent where I'm from, I am more comfortable to approach that table or that place than a place where I don't see anything that is like what I've known. So sight and sounds is always a great thing. Let's incorporate the sights of the sounds of different cultures, the sights of different cultures. In our media system, looking at even WOSU, for example, it's a public media. Let's see how much of our different cultures are even shown out there. We don't see that. We don't see that. In Central Ohio, we don't see programs from our community. We don't see, and I thank the FCC especially for granting us this license for us to be able to have something for the multicultural community. But I think we can do more than that. I think as a people we can do more than that. I think nothing is impossible with us. We're able to put a man on the moon. Nothing is impossible with us. Again, diversity and inclusion has to be a commitment, and it should be an intentional thing that we do. We should go out hoping to see somebody that is different from us. We should go out hoping to have an encounter with someone of a different culture that speaks differently than what I speak. And I think if we do that, it will be much easier for us.
Thank you, Ernest. Dr. Ortiz, would you like to share?
So first of all, I just from a personal perspective, I know when I go to places, and I'm the only brown one in the room, a smile and a hello, right? A smile and a hello, and you'll feel welcome. And just that whole feeling of welcome goes a long way in terms of practicing inclusiveness and et cetera. The other is what you're doing here with this panel is, right, bringing diverse folks up on a panel to educate the community or to educate, if you're working in an agency, bring different speakers. You have sources here that will provide speakers for your agency to come in and talk about the different cultures so that your staff can learn what our residents are like out there. And then this is kind of a tool. I always press with the translation because it's so much easier for folks. So translating forms in your agency, your website, etc. And I think just nationally and here, we talk a lot about our public figures are not diverse enough, and we are seeing that. And I have to say, it's our diverse groups, many immigrants here have gone on to become citizens. They can vote, right? So we need to help them in terms of go out, to go out to vote, and some of that requires translation of ballots. Do you know that there are several counties here in Ohio that have translated ballots for their residents? Because they have, by law, by federal law, you have to have, if you have a certain percentage of immigrants that speak certain language, they have a whole, there's a formula, right? You have to provide translated ballots, and you have to provide poll workers who are bilingual or, proficient in the other languages. And so there are several counties in Ohio that have. One of them was actually sued to have the translated ballots. So from my perspective, it's here in Franklin County, it's getting that translated ballots so that we can have folks of different cultures, nationalities who are legally here, who have, who are citizens, that they can vote, and they can vote for people who represent them.
Thank you very much. Jabril, would you like to share?
Oh, definitely. So, so when we have a changing environment, I said earlier that it's important that we get out there and get to know the people that are around us, not only expect them to learn about, our culture and our language and everything. Let me tell you a little story. So, culture has two components. One is visible. If I'm a Muslim woman, you can see my hijab. You can see the doctor's dress, and you can figure out that, although some people actually, especially hate groups, mistake Sikhs for Muslims, you can see his religious attire, and you can identify he has a distinct culture. But there are so many things that you cannot see. The invisible parts of culture are much greater than the visible ones. You can just go to a restaurant, eat, you can go to, you can see somebody visually, you can listen to a song on YouTube, things like that. So let me tell you about the naming system, for example, in Somali. I used to work as an interpreter at some point, and somebody would say, "What's your last name?" The concept last name does not exist in Somali. There is no last name. It's my name, my father's name, my grandfather's name. Now, when a fellow Somali addresses me, they address me with my first name. If they add anything, they add my father's name. So, Jibril, the son of Ali. So, Jibril Ali, that's who I am in Somalia. When I'm here, somehow they skip my middle name. They lose my father, and they go to my grandfather, my father's father. And what does that mean? My son does not have the same last name as me. He has his name, me as his middle name, my father as his last name. My wife does not have the same last name as me. She has her name, her father's name, her grandfather's name. She keeps that forever. So the family, except for the kids, nobody has the same last names. The father, the mother, the kids, everybody has different. And so there are things like that you need to know about them. The timing system in Somalia is different. It's not the same way that we think of time. Now, what time is it right now? 12:35. In about 25 minutes, we're going to go to 1 o'clock, right? Mm-hmm. 1 is at the beginning of something. What are we beginning, actually?
A new hour.
No, but we were at 12. Why are we going back in the middle of the day? Why are we going to 1 in the middle of the day? The day started already at the beginning of the day. I don't see what we're beginning. We can't comprehend it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
So we're beginning something in the middle of the day. We're beginning something in the middle of the night. And I don't know what that is. We woke up early in the morning. The day is going on. And it all of a sudden changed back to 1. I don't know. My grandmother will have difficulty understanding what that means. She knows a day that begins at 7 o'clock. 7 is the first hour of the day. And the day has 12 hours. The night has 12 hours. So this time it would be 6 hours from the morning, right? We have 6 more hours to go to evening. And then in the evening, it begins at 1. So 12 hours of day, 1 to 12. 12 hours of night, 1 to 12. Not 12 hours beginning in the middle. Right?
That makes good sense. I never knew that. I never knew that. Thank you. Try and beat that one, Nana.
I can't. I know what question we're on. I was so engaged with the time.
Just some tools of how to practice inclusiveness
Okay.
and acceptance.
I think asking questions, and I said that earlier, need to ask questions. I'll be asking my friend here to share with me your turban. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I want to talk more to you about this time because you really have me confused there. So I think that we have to begin to ask questions when you're out somewhere and you see somebody that doesn't look like you. It's okay to walk up and say, hey, how are you? I'm Nana. Who are you? And where are you from? I think that's okay. I don't think it's insulting, but then again, I like to ask a lot of questions. So I just encourage people to ask questions, embrace. I'm a hugger. I saw my friend here and I thought, well, I don't know if I should hug him, but I'm going to hug him. And if he doesn't like it, I have to stand up. I have to stand up and hug.
Hugging is good. Hugging and smiling is good.
So I didn't know if that was appropriate, so I thought, well, if I do it and he says, we don't do that, I would have said, okay, but tell me why.
Yes, yes.
So I think you need to be more inquisitive of individuals that don't look like us.
Thank you. Very important things. Dr. Battaglia.
I have 3 quick things. The first one is we all know the golden rule, right? Do to other one, do to you. However, a Catholic friend of mine, Father Vinnie McKernan, some of you may know him, and another person who's recording us, his mom knows him. He has the platinum rule that says, do to others as they would want you to do to them. And you heard Nana just talk about, she gave you a good example of that she wanted to hug me, but she asked, and then we hugged. She really wanted to know if it was okay for me to do that or not. So you saw a living example of the first one. The second is we operate on the other person's territory. I remember a UCC pastor, one of the biggest churches in Columbus, had a Hindu neighbor and kept inviting the Hindu neighbor for like 3 years in a row for Thanksgiving, and the family never showed up. I said it's because there is a perception that new Americans have of Christianity that you are a pastor of a big church. I'm telling you, many new Americans who come think that when you as a Christian come and approach us, you only have one purpose, is to save my soul. Okay? It is a very strong stereotype. So I said, instead of doing that, why don't on Diwali, the Hindu holiday, why don't you say, let's have a potluck at your home? And guess what? It worked. And last thing, friends, I want this language about immigrants. And I learned this language is important. And what you will find is that when the immigration laws were liberalized in the 1950s and 60s, particularly 1970s, when the browning of America began, we already were black as a country, but many of our African American citizens and neighbors were brought here involuntarily as slaves. They did not choose to immigrate here. But those who came on their own choice, for some reason, have forgotten that they were immigrants at one time. And the label we've taken is Americans. So I think at this point it is important for us to stop using the word immigrant as Chris does, and we call new Americans. It's a transition that we need to make as a community. I mean, I lived there 30 years, and I'm always the only person wherever I go. And half the people in the room think I'm Muslim, and half people think I've just been a couple of years. And I'm okay with that. And the point I think, Jibril, you made, my turban is a part of who I am. But if that's all you see, you haven't come to know me. And that's why I think for us to come together and engage together, I mean, I saw Brad Young from ODOT. We've had work relations. I work at OSU. It's great to be able to do and create public spaces where we can engage with diversity. Thank you.
Aren't they? They are so good, aren't they? My goodness.
Here, I have one more little thing.
Okay,
I
please.
think that we should treat everyone as though they are our friends. Amen. Yeah, okay,
That's
was it.
very, very true.
Gail, could I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Nana,
Go ahead.
racism is a huge issue that cuts across religious, ethnic, cultural lines across our country and in this community.
Yes.
What can we do about racism in our community?
We need to have a conversation about it because it's the elephant in the room and nobody wants to talk about it. And perhaps the NAACP will take on that role to have a healthy conversation about what racism is and be honest. Just be honest with each other. You may not like black people, tell me why. Was that something that happened? Did a black person do something to a white person when they were young? How did you grow up? What were your values? What did they say about people from Somalia? We have to have an open and honest conversation. And until we do that, we're not going to get any further than where we are now. It will always be there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
It means we have to have intentional forums to be able to do that, and maybe next year, Gail, when we have these kinds of sessions, that can be something the NAACP can work on.
We'll
That
be
would be
more than
awesome.
happy. We accept that challenge.
Thank you.
I'll have to talk to the director, but we might too. Okay, and we're going to skip a couple questions because I want everybody to know your contact information. But please just tell us quickly, what's the best way to approach someone from a different culture? I would say, and I'm not the professional, a smile sure helps. But why don't we go through and just say one or two things on how we can be more welcoming and understanding. You start out, Jabril.
Yeah, you already said it. I smile, hello. That Dr. Ortiz already said it. I mean, that would be the beginning point. But also, if you have a neighbor that is different from you, if you have I know where I live. I mean, I grew up in Somalia. And when I was growing up, all adults were second parents to me. That's the way I was raised. So if an adult sees me doing something wrong, my parents know about it. I don't know how they managed all that, but there was this channel of communication that was open, and I would behave because of that. So my school grades were public records, so they would be put on the open school box, and everybody could see them. So if I had a C in math, and the past year I had an A, everybody knows about it. What did you do wrong this year? You have to change this. You used to be in the school math club. Now you're not. What's happening? And I would have so much pressure to change my ways next time. So I think America is a little bit different from that background and that environment. And we try to bring some of those cultural things, including the graduation, where we celebrate the graduation of young people as a community. But it's very private, very individualistic, but that doesn't mean, it's not only Halloween that your kids need to get out. It's not only, certain times that you need to interact with your neighbors. Begin an interaction. They might be afraid. They might have no neighbors that they know. If somebody moves in, begin the conversation. Say hello. If somebody works with you in an office, one thing I noticed is that I used to work in downtown. The person working the other side of the building or at the other side of the cubicle, you might never interact with them. You just cross each other, you barely say hi. You don't know their names, they don't know your name. I mean, and you bring something to the table. You have value. And maybe I am afraid of my language skills. I have a big accent, I don't want to be talking. Make me talk. Talk to me. I think that would be a good way to begin opening up and having conversations.
I like that. Thank you so much, Jabril. Nana?
Treat people like you want to be treated. That's it for me. As
Okay.
though they were your friend.
I have two. One is, in addition to talking, look people in the eye. eye contact is extremely important. And this ties into the second part is we all have many identities. None of us is individual. For example, you are not just a Somalian. You are a man. Maybe there are issues with regard to raising children that you and me would have in common. You are a Central Ohioan. You are an American. I think we need to get away from single to multiple identities. And one incident I want to share that happened yesterday. In the morning, I was doing some yard work, and this young man who used to go with his family was running alone. So I said, "Where's your family?" And he's running. He said, "Oh, well," and he ran away, like the people you said he ran into. Then in the evening, I was putting some crabgrass control, and his wife, and 2 kids happened to go by. And of course, I was all sweaty. Now, he made it a point to come across the fence and hug me and say, "Hi, how are you?" And his wife made it a point that his 2 kids who were in a stroller were able to see him and me hug together. Now, friends, that was very intentional. His wife wanted her kids to see that there were 2 different people who are neighbors and simply were hugging together. I think those little things are important for us. The human touch is what melts us. Because in the end, I think the 3 things we work with, head, heart, and hands, I think we get it here. The place where we don't get it is here. That's why it never comes out here. So we got to work here.
Thank you. I love it. Ernest?
Good. Thank you very much. So I think we have to know how it feels when how does it feel when you are treated in a way that you dislike? How would it feel for you to be looked down upon? How would it feel for you to be disrespected or not regarded in a room? This is the same way we should treat people of different culture and different backgrounds. I will touch more on the corporate level, and I want to add to what I said earlier, but I think immigrants, or the word new Americans, or people of different cultures, some people have the mindset that they are here to take from us. They are here to take. But there is a lot more that immigrants bring, or people of different countries or cultures bring on here that we have no idea of. Most of these people are entrepreneurs, people are business owners. I think Central Ohio, the city or the state of Ohio may even have those numbers to prove. Immigrants are very hardworking. Most immigrants are very hardworking people. They are not here to take from us. They are not here to take of our resources. They are not here so that our resources will run out. There's a lot more of us that bring to the table. I'll use my life as an example. I know different people from different cultures, even the Somali community, the Nepali communities, that have thriving businesses, employing all numbers of people. I have relationship with grocery stores, Saraga International Market, with two great outlets here in the Central Ohio area, where they employed close to 100 people, and these people are also bringing something which we do not have. They are economically empowered. They are empowering our economy. They are entrepreneurs. They are opening up businesses. And we shouldn't look at them as if they are here to take from us. Mm-hmm. They are here also to give. Another thing I want to see is to see people of the new American community also being awarded contracts, being economically empowered. It's not creating an office somewhere to put them, to make you look good. No. It is also we intentionally empowering them economically. Some of them may not be at the place, at par where we want them to operate as the mainstream American companies, but we can give them the way to grow. We can give them time to grow. We can teach them. We can open up seminars, which I think the city is doing a great job with that. We can have training programs, to build capacity for them, to be able to come at par with where you want everybody else to be. And these are the things that I want to see as a people. I want to see a lot more of it. I want to see a new American contractor building I-71, doing a reconstruction work there. I want to see that. I want to see them working on one of the state buildings, you know, refurbishing the state building or expanding a section of the state building, which is economic empowerment. It's not just being able to sit on a table and eat with these people. They have skills, they have capabilities, they have things that we have no idea. And if we can open up to them and give them the chance, Columbus is the opportunity city, right? Mm-hmm. If we can give them the chance, we can open out our doors to them to see what they can also put out. Let's give them the chance and see what they can also put out. We will be surprised what will come out of them.
Thank you very much, Ernest. Dr. Ortiz?
So contact information, you asked?
Oh, no, you can do that. Yeah, well, I figured you all, they probably know how to get a hold of you.
Okay. Website,
About, no,
yeah.
no, but just
Very easy.
some way that people can be more welcoming, because we need to leave a
Okay.
couple minutes for questions, because I
Sure.
think that you all may have some questions for these folks.
As I said before, a smile, a hello. If you see someone in distress, and this, this always gets, don't ignore them. Just, go up to them and say, may I help you? How can I help you? And that's how we run our office. That's how I run my life. And, how can I help you? If you see someone that's having, trouble, a new American, things can be confusing sometimes, especially going into offices. And just that little sentence, little phrase goes a long way.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think the panel did an excellent job. Would you like to help me give them a hand? Thank you very much. Now, the next 10 minutes, we're going to take questions. So if you have a question or something that you'd like to share, you have to come up here because you're going to be on TV. Okay, well, you come on right up here and introduce yourself.
But I'm not a new American. My family has been here for generations. And yet, because I am a brown woman, people assume that I just got off the boat yesterday. So when people ask me where you're from, I actually find that offensive. So where? Because I'm actually from Texas. And so when they say, no, where are you really from? Texas. Where are you really? Well, my mom was born in Scott Bluff, Nebraska. So for a Latino, we have been here many, many centuries, and yet we're not even, what are we, old Americans, new Americans? I don't know really. So my question to you is, one of the things that I'm listening is the cultural thing. And I know as a Texan, I grew up Americanized. I never knew my culture. I was raised where my father was oppressed, and in the area that we lived, you didn't practice culture. You kind of just did what everybody else did. So I'm wondering do you think that one of the reasons that there's so much, racism has always been there for our people. President Hoover shipped Mexican-American people back to Mexico, even though they were Mexican-American. So there's been a lot of oppression and all that, but I'm wondering, is it the fact that maybe now we are, as a people that are different, people of color, are keeping our culture and wanting to keep our culture and not, and at the same time, I'm a big football fan, so, but you know what I mean? I'm a diehard Steeler fan. But I love the colors you're wearing, yellow and black.
I know.
Thank you. But I'm just wondering, so do you think that might be one of the reasons for, because, when we were young, you didn't hear about Hispanic heritage, you didn't hear about, but as cultures of more diverse people are coming to this country, they're saying, hey, I'm not giving up my beliefs, my culture, and Latinos have always wanted to keep our language because we were here first. Okay, so I'm just wondering, what do you all think about that?
Let me begin by saying that I think immigrants who came to this country till about the 1950s or 60s came here to assimilate. That was, you gave up Italian, German, whatever you were, within 1 or 2 generations that it was gone. Immigrants that come since the 1970s and 80s don't want to assimilate, they only want to accommodate. And there is a tension that occurs between, so the older immigrants expect the newer immigrants to also assimilate, because that's what they did. That's what they have seen. And it frustrates the heck out of them as to why don't the newer immigrants assimilate into society. It's that tag between assimilation and accommodation, and it's a generational gap too.
Thank you.
And even if we try to assimilate, see yourself, born here, your parents born here, still,
Grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents.
Look at that.
And yet they still say,
So-
where are you from?
actually what I see with young people, young Somali people, young Muslim people, who try to really assimilate, try to, change everything about them, get in there, be part of society in the ways that society they think expects them, they hit a wall because they face discrimination, they face challenges, they face problems, and not only from this side, but also from their own communities, because they left the culture. So it's really a difficult fix for people, and that forces them to really stay within their culture, because the broader culture is not very welcoming. Departing from your culture is not healthy socially. So people are forced to really maintain their cultural roots in many ways.
Thank you.
And one other thing that I wanted to add, the differences in culture are not actually a problem, they are an asset. I recently went to Kenya, where I was working with the U.S. Embassy there, and the U.S. has special operations forces inside Somalia fighting terrorism. And when I talk to the soldiers, they would tell me their biggest assets are Somali Americans, who know the language, who know the culture, who know if threat is coming, because they don't hear anything. I mean, they don't hear what this person is saying. The fellow Somali soldier that's serving with them is the one who picks up the information and who is able to say, hey, this is good, this is bad, this is happening. So these people are bringing something to the table. We're not just, in Columbus, the Morris Road corridor, visit there. You will see Nepali stores. You just spoke about the, Mexican, what is it called? Yeah, the Saraga, that's an Asian. The Somali, all of Morris Road is rebuilding. It used to be a really poor neighborhood, now it's doing very well. So these people bring a spirit of entrepreneurship. They bring skills that they are secrets now, we don't want to share them. if let me tell you this, a Somali woman would begin a business at the Global Mall, for example, with no borrowing. She doesn't borrow a penny. What does she do? She uses local resources, connections with other women. They build savings together. They empower each other. They, work together to build an asset base that can help each one of them begin her business and become successful. So, these people have assets, they have skills, they have the risk-taking behavior to be able to really. And one other thing that I wanted to add is that, the people that come out of their home countries, I wouldn't expect anybody to be wanting to just leave America and go to Australia for no reason. There has to be a reason. There has to be, most people, it's a job or something. For refugees, it's fear that takes them out. So it's an opportunity to be here. It's an honor to be here. We're committed to contributing to our local economy, to our local society, to doing our best. And we're not just, a burden on society. We want to be the best that we can be.
Something to the question about we as immigrants, new Americans, are we living our cultures that makes life harder? I think one other thing that I've seen is the challenge of maintaining like organizations that wants to put structures, training programs, places for our kids to learn these cultures and to learn the way we do things. It's not easy economically for them to keep up those programs. So, and that's what I'm saying, it's not just saying or putting something on your website that makes you, as an organization, looks good, that you embrace diversity, but how do you empower these organizations, these nonprofit organizations that seeks to preserve these cultures, because they are an asset to future generations. And I think it's something that we should all work on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When I look at the whole of this conversation, the elephant that I see, I love elephants. is we haven't really addressed what seems to be the problem. And to me, the problem seems to be the question of what is evil? What is bad? Equally important is what is good and what do we want? For I feel that it is fear, more than resentment, more than mistreatment, that is the problem. And if we consider what is bad, we would all agree that being mistreated, not valued, being taken advantage of, misused, is one of the most common things, whether we're talking about interpersonal relationships or money and things and material. What we want, probably, if you agree with me, is we want to share. We want to love and be loved, seen and see. So what strategies might we be considering that would do it? Now, there's a lot of talk about racism that is, you know, dredged up from the past. But I'm a third-generation Armenian. My family came, my grandfather came to escape genocide. We all have stories. And the people that came earlier have become the ground. When a flower dies, all the elements go back into the dirt. It may smell funny, it may look funny, but it's the foundation that allows the flower of the new people to come, which creates a possibility of a future. So we cannot be afraid of the past, to acknowledge the hurt, to embrace and say, I am so deeply sorry and ashamed. But if people are yelling at you, are you open-hearted enough to say how sorry you are? So approaching this problem has to be in a way that will allow us to be open-hearted. And this is what our panel here has so eloquently shown in so many different ways. And I do appreciate the City of Columbus and Gail for bringing this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I just want to remind everybody that following this panel discussion, Allison has been putting little questions around the tables, and I encourage you to please talk to people around you that you don't know and learn a little bit about them. I also would like to thank Hound Dogs Pizza for being so generous and sponsoring us. I want to thank Commissioner Poirier for leading the Education Committee. This panel has been truly amazing, and I would also like to invite everyone to please join us on October 20th at the Neighborhood Best Practices Conference, and you're going to get a lot of good things like this. And my cards are in the back, and all you have to do is say, I want to go, and you're on the list, okay? So if we could just take a minute to thank these folks one more time, and then we'll start our discussions.